I'm not interested in talent.
Okay.
Someone accused me once of saying that talent doesn't exist. I don't believe that. I just don't care about it. I care about skills.
Oh, okay.
Talent you're born with, skill you develop.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to work with talented people who have no skills.
Mm-hmm.
I want to work with skilled people, and I don't care about their talent if they have skills.
Podcast, Power of Humanity. How we can develop ourselves. How we can live with purpose. Here we have one guy who has become trainer on the really high world level from archaeology and marketing. Jonathan Howard. Great examples, great stories. Welcome to our podcast, Power of Humanity.
Podcast about fulfilling our human possibilities and living meaningful lives. Power of Humanity.
Okay, guys. Today I have a really special guest in our house. He's self-ironic, as you see from his mimicking, kind of that. Jonathan Howard from England, and really nice to have you here.
Nice to be here.
Jonathan, I know you actually just for about 1 year, I suppose, right now. Really short time we know each other, I suppose. 1 year or two?
2.
Wow, that's good.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Oh yeah, exactly. So we met in consideration about you giving a lecture in our youth program, or youth program about emotional intelligence, and we just hit it off. I'm just really happy to know you, and I just want you to give this opportunity just to share your ideas about our topics, what is really important, how to live your life with passion and meaning, and about emotional intelligence, what is kind of I suppose, or for humanity, the next big tool, how to help ourselves. And but at the first I would like to ask you one thing. So you have been in marketing for a long time. So I suppose there shouldn't be problem for you to give elevator pitch about your life in 3 minutes. What could be like the I don't know, poster about Jonathan Howard in 3 minutes elevator pitch? Could you?
Wow!
Yay!
Well, my life has basically been a journey of discovering the excitement of helping people to find their internal inspiration with insights about them. People telling themselves the right stories about themselves, so they can find something inside them they didn't think was there.
Okay.
Or something they always knew was there, they just didn't know how to find it. And that's been quite a long journey, because it started in advertising. It started in archaeology, really.
Exactly. I was really shocked that I heard it from you. Okay.
Yeah.
You went to university to study archaeology?
Yes.
Okay. You finished full course?
Yes.
Okay.
And while I was studying archaeology, I learned about the origins of epic literature and the origins of trade. And so I realized that the only thing I was qualified for was advertising, unless I wanted to be an archaeologist.
Could you make a relation between those statements? Sorry, what is origins of trade and
yes,
why did you understand that?
The origins of trade, it's about money and brands. Now, money and brands started at the same time as each other, and they depend on each other, because they started at the moment when the primary producer of a product and the end user of a product don't know each other personally. Then you need a brand going in one direction and money going in the other direction. And that was a fascinating discovery for me. It was all about the difference between strangers and companions who've known each other all their lives. When we had big societies, suddenly we're living among strangers. So we had to completely change the way we did everything. And that was a fascinating insight. I just didn't know what to do with it or where to take it. And at the same time, I was studying the origins of epic literature, which is how oral storytelling tradition gets written down. And looking at the reasons why they wrote down the stories that they wrote down.
Could you expand a little bit? Epic literature, you mean like how Buddhism was brought to life,
No.
for example? Or
No. Well, there were different kinds of literature in the ancient world. There was monumental literature, which was all about the king.
Okay.
About what a dude the king is. And most of it was fiction, of course.
Story about kings, PR of kings.
Yeah, PR,
Yeah.
total
Okay,
PR.
okay.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Then there's didactic literature, which is educational.
Babylonia and something like that?
Yeah. And then there's epic literature, which is about the tribe and the achievements of the tribe. It celebrates the people who are reading it and where they came from. And literature and storytelling is a gloriously emotional area of human activity. In fact, everything more complicated than a bus timetable is told through stories and experienced through stories. Everything is a story. Even God started with a story. The universe started with a story. What story it started with depends whether you're talking to a priest or a quantum physicist. But the difference between their stories masks the fact that they both have stories. Everything is story.
We call them legends sometimes, or something like that, or myth,
or theories.
Yeah. Okay. Even theories.
The Big Bang is a story.
Yeah.
It's a theoretical story, possibly true. It's a story. Stories don't have to be fiction. I then sort of made this connection that there is a very strong link between the origins of trade and the origins of epic literature. How do you create meaning in a product, in a logo, in a brand? You create it through stories. Every piece of advertising is storytelling. Good advertising, anyway. Crap advertising is not storytelling, which is why it's crap. And
that's just crap telling. Okay.
That's crap telling.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Just let's give honor.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a big problem in the modern world. Everybody's obsessed with data, and they forget that they're storytellers in the marketing industry. So I realised that advertising was ideal for me. I was qualified for it, and it was also ideal for me because you don't do the same thing day in, day out. In the morning, you're working on a diaper brand. In the afternoon, you're working on a chocolate brand, and you learn about so many different areas of human behaviour and psychology. So I loved it. I was a sort of an anthropologist figuring out how to sell stuff. For me, it was more about the intellectual game. I wasn't really interested in the selling or in winning awards. I mean, I quite liked all that side of things because we had nice big budgets and big expense accounts. It was very pleasant, much nicer than archaeology. But it was the thinking that I enjoyed. And then I discovered that we really were not as creative as we thought we were. We're all congratulating ourselves, patting ourselves on the back. I'm so creative. You're so creative. Well done, so creative. And none of us knew really what we were talking about, and we weren't very creative. And I realized that the problem was with our communication behavior, the way we spoke to each other. We never listened to each other. We always saw everything that somebody else said as an opportunity to knock them down. And this is supposed to be a creative industry. And I got very frustrated with it. And then by chance, I learned a series of techniques about how to open up the imagination, especially under pressure and in a group with other people. And I got very, very passionate about that because it was kind of the solution to the problems that I was experiencing. I heard somewhere that passion is a combination of love plus anger. I'm not sure if it's 100% true, but it's an interesting framework.
We can return to that later. It's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and I was passionate about creativity in business. And the reason I was passionate about it, following this definition, was because I loved it. And at the same time, I was very angry about how it happened. I love the process of having ideas and helping other people to have an idea. I can see there's something in there that wants to get out, and they can't get it out. They're blocking themselves. And I help them to just sort of massage their imagination a bit and pull this baby out. And I hate it when people block each other. That was what used to make me angry. So I became very passionate about creative protocols, creative methods and techniques that you don't have to be Picasso to be creative. You just have to follow the right thinking procedures.
I heard your concept about this, that creativity has nothing to do with talent.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, yes. That behavior, communication in the groups, and that's the main thing.
I'm not interested in talent.
Okay.
Someone accused me once of saying that talent doesn't exist. I don't believe that. I just don't care about it. I care about skills.
Oh, okay.
Talent you're born with, skill you develop. And I don't want to work with talented people who have no skills. I want to work with skilled people, and I don't care about their talent if they have skills.
Okay. So actually, I'll just try to pull you towards the question about how did you find your, passion or meaning whatsoever. That, am I right? I'm just trying to summarize. So you are kind of attached to some idea, emotionally attached. So for example, archaeology, you were interested in because of history. Or what?
I was looking for roots.
Roots. So your idea were roots. Your roots.
The roots of humanity.
Humanity.
Yeah.
Okay.
I found it fascinating.
So afterwards, you go to advertisement because you find kind of idea interesting how to make stories.
Yes, it's professional commercial storytelling.
Okay.
It's different every day, and they have big budgets.
Okay. So big budget, by the way, means that you have toolkit. You have tools. You have possibilities.
Yes, and it means nice long lunches and a very pleasant social life with creative people.
Yeah, and you are really kind of statusy. Right, kind of statusish. in some ways. Oh man, really? I suppose this is the industry where the putting is like the culture, right?
Yeah, well, that was the side of it I didn't like. See, advertising is a business of manufacturing illusions. And the first illusion that everybody in advertising manufactures is illusions about themselves.
But this is important.
Yeah, and that used to irritate me.
Okay.
But when they weren't on show, then they were very, very cool, pleasant, interesting people.
Okay.
So at lunch with a couple of bottles of wine, that's when advertising is at its most fun.
Okay. And afterwards, you find some kind of this idea of creativity and sense of urgency to help, to give release to that creativity. Okay, so how would you summarize your path? What is your mechanisms of going towards your passion and meaning? What are your mechanisms has been?
My mechanism?
Yeah. So for everyone it's different. For example, someone wants to develop all the time. Someone wants to have autonomy. Someone wants to help other people. Someone goes to Africa and helps not in his countryside, but in Africa someone. So everyone has these different tools or different let's say sparkles or directions or impulses what guides them. It's kind of inner gamification question about what moves you.
Yes. Well, my process never felt very systematic. Looking back on it, it was. What I tend to do is get very excited about a particular subject, and I don't know why. I just dive into it. And then I stop and start to analyse it and pick it apart. And then I see patterns about why it interests me. And I relate it to other things I've been interested in. And suddenly all of those other things get richer and deeper because they're now connected to this new passion. And that's been a fairly consistent process.
So you kind of... like to okay, you have a feeling I like this topic, so this is really important for everyone, kind of, because in our course it's about find your passion and the purpose. There's really important to listen to yourself. So I really it's just not to waste your time. This is not something like stupid or silly. This is like really serious stuff. When you have this interest, you afterwards like to kind of deconstruct it, analyze it. That's your passion, actually, right? This is like kind of...
Yes, part of it, yes.
Yeah, and afterwards you try to understand practical implementation possibilities. And in the later years now, you, as I feel and see you want to contribute and help others.
Oh, yeah.
So kind of these four aspects, for example, makes some kind of TQ.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's no point in it unless you're helping people. That was also one of the things that I found quite frustrating about advertising. The process is enormously enjoyable when you're not being an idiot and arguing with everybody. The problem is the result. Well, the result is you're just manipulating people's perceptions to pay slightly more for a product that they don't really need, and it's kind of a bit soulless. It doesn't help anyone. There are types of advertising that do, depends on what you're advertising. I worked on the road safety campaign for the British government. That was very rewarding. We saved lots of lives. There's public service advertising. There's that kind of thing. It's very good. Most of the time, you're just selling chocolate and toothpaste and credit cards, and so whilst the process is fun, the result, the product is...
For you, not satisfactory
enough.
Just
empty.
By the way, just in case, could you tell everyone about this road safety advertisement? That was like longest running ad in...
Yes, as far as I know, they're still running it.
Okay.
And it was back in 2000, I think, that we originally produced it. They had a problem because the strategy kept changing every few months. Every time they had a new message, which is like, don't speed, or, don't drink and drive, wear your rear seatbelt, whatever it was, they had to have a different persuasion strategy. There was no glue holding it all together. And I've never driven a car in my life, so I could only work through observation. I couldn't work through personal experience. One of my colleagues said to me, if you started driving now, you'd be a very good driver because of everything that you know from working on this campaign. And I said, yes, of course, because I'd think. And people don't think while they're driving. And she said, ooh, think. Yeah. And we both got obsessed with this word, think. The idea that people don't think. So we figured that the slogan, the line, should be think. And then we tried to sell it to the creative team, whose job was to think of the line. And it was hard. So we just kept dropping this word into the conversations with them all the time.
Oh, man. That's...
the problem is people just don't think. They've got to start thinking. And Vanilla was like, yeah, people need to think. They'd be like, yeah, whatever, right? And they'd try and you know, be more clever and try and think of a better line. And then they phoned us up a couple of weeks later and said, come and see us, we've got something. So we went to see them and they said, right, here's the line. Think.
Oh, you're nasty. That's nasty. This is manipulation about the conformity, not conformity, that I recognize something.
Well,
familiarity. This is familiarity stuff, right? I have seen it a lot of times. It kind of feels myself, a product of mine, or something like that.
You call it manipulation. I think it was just a Darwinian process. The best idea survived.
Absolutely, and I would emphasize for everyone that, for example, in emotional intelligence courses, there is this question: if I am communicating with someone, I would like not to manipulate, right? And my question is, when was the last time when you did manipulate someone? And people usually are starting to think yesterday, not the day before. And answer usually is the very same moment when you speak, you're actually manipulating because you're trying to construct your sentence in a way that others understand.
Of course.
So you are trying to get your message aboard across, right? So you're actually influencing others, and so it's manipulating. So manipulation is every time we open our mouths. Maybe when we are totally drunk, it's not happening, and maybe when we are sleeping, you know, rah, rah, rah. So other than that, every time, it's like all the time it's manipulation, it's selling, it's all the time.
Well, yeah, I know what you mean. I don't think so. I think most of the time it is. Most of the time it is. Most human communication is manipulative. There are moments when you get into a kind of a jazz state of mind, when you're improvising in the proper sense, and when you're discovering and creating something together, you're being completely spontaneous. Your sense of status is suspended. Your sense of having an objective or wanting something from the other person is suspended, and you just you immerse yourselves in this wonderful joint creative experience together. That's when real magic happens, and that's not manipulative.
I would say still sorry. we can stick to each other's point of view, but that my feeling is that manipulation can be from 1 to 10 scale in different levels. So, for example, level 1, I just want to manipulate my father and mother to give me candy.
Right.
Level 5 would be just advertisement. And that could be level 9 when you are just manipulating just to get your good idea across in this really jazzy atmosphere, when you are on the same wave, but you are just caring about others, just to understand. So my manipulation is, and the goal of this manipulation is that you understand me. I'm manipulating you. I'm constructing words, sentences in a way that you understand better. Yes. So this is kind of manipulation. So because goal is the same, just the objectives or values or ethics are different. Kind of that.
Yeah.
That's my perception of that.
Yes, that's constructive manipulation.
Kind of that, yeah. Human.
Yes.
Or human fulfilled, or responsible, or friendship-like. Kind of that.
There's a difference though, because that kind of manipulation, seeking clarity, trying to be understood, I wouldn't consider it manipulation if there isn't something that you have in mind that you want the other person to think. If you're genuinely interested in discovering something together with them, and you're open to whatever they say, and you're just going to build on it, then that's not manipulative.
Okay. The difference is we are stuck in this this topic because it's interesting, right? I think is like my goal when it is like as you said, as you characterized, is I want him to his inner voice to say I understood.
Well, I want to know what his inner voice says.
Or besides that too. But anyway, right now, again, I'm trying to construct my English in a way that you understand me. So again, this is my goal. So my goal is not that you buy something.
Right.
My goal is not that you go somewhere. My goal is that you understand me.
Right.
So this is like kind of, again, I'm trying to manipulate your understanding, looking word for words and blah, blah, blah. So again, we can, I suppose, that could be like, we can bring this conversation to our next meeting.
So that's a debating topic.
Yeah, kind of that. Okay, anyways, for others, the very important thing is like, again, to try to understand that you can have this feeling about what interests you, and after that, just try to understand what are the other elements, what you enjoy in this process. Okay, now, you have been as a teacher for how long time? Trainer.
Nearly 20 years.
20 years. Okay. So 20 years. And there have been shifts, right, in your training career. So we met maybe last year and you said, listen, I just wanted to understand more about my why. why I am trainer. I remember you returned from one trip and you said, listen, I have an idea what I want to do. Could you explain why I am doing this purpose is so important for you and how you are trying to find it?
I was getting frustrated and didn't understand why. My career felt like kind of Groundhog Day.
In terms of as a trainer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, at the beginning, it was I was teaching people creativity and improvisation.
Okay.
And I knew that they enjoyed listening to explanations, but they didn't want to get up on their feet and do things themselves, because it's easier just to sit and watch someone talk if they're talking about a subject that you're interested in. And they were reluctant to do things, to try things out, to try the games and exercises themselves. And so I was focused heavily on getting them to do stuff. And then I understood that just as much learning took place when they were listening to explanations. So I started to do a bit more of that, even though I didn't like it. I preferred to get them doing things. And then I realized that there's a kind of a magic combination. There's a magic mixture. You have to create an environment for them where it feels like not quite real life. It feels like they're inside of some kind of a bubble. And once you create that bubble, then anything's possible. They can do all kinds of amazing stuff that they didn't realize they could do. And it was always, the process was always very similar. The result was always different because they had different objectives. Some people said, our team hate each other, they need to get on with each other. Other people said, well, we fall to pieces under pressure, so we need to not fall to pieces under pressure. So everyone had different objectives. Or they said we need to find specific ideas, specific solutions to specific problems. And I sensed that there was a common thread running through it all, but I didn't know what that thread was until I met some shamans from South America. And I had a lot of insights with them. And one of the insights I had was that, and it was a period of my career where I didn't know if I wanted to carry on working with advertising people or start working with kind of NGOs and charities.
So you as a trainer working with advertising guys?
Yeah,
okay.
as clients.
Yeah.
And the insight that I was given was it doesn't matter who you work with as long as you understand the nature of your work. And the nature of your work is when it's good, it's a form of healing. And everybody needs healing in different ways. It doesn't matter if they work for an environmental charity or for an advertising agency or a bank or a law firm. Everybody needs some kind of healing. And I'm not talking about healing diabetes and things like that. It's more up here.
For example, could you name one thing about what or?
Yeah, well, people who are very blocked or people who are very negative. People who can't see possibilities because their brains default in this kind of loop pattern to looking for problems. And pulling them out of that trance, and it is a trance, pulling them out of that trance is a sacred thing to do. And it's a difficult thing to do because when people's trances are threatened, they double down. So you've got to go inside the trance and pull them out gently. And that was an incredibly rewarding insight for me to discover. Because what I learned something amazing about shamanism and about how shamans work and what they do. Everybody thinks shamanism is about, magic and hocus pocus and the spirit world and all this stuff. It's healing. That's the first purpose of shamanism is healing. And everybody who heals has a different way of doing it. So doctors do it with surgery or with pills or whatever. Nutritionists do it with nutritional advice. Shamans do it with lots of different things. They do it with plant medicine. They do it with songs. They do it with rattles, drums, touch. And every person who tries to heal is doing two things. And this is what I learned from the shamans. The first thing they're doing, you're working with energies, different kinds of energies. And the job of a shaman or any kind of healer is to banish or remove the unwanted energies from a person's life and to bring in or to invoke the wanted energies into a person's life. That's it. Everything else is just details. And so I realized that this way of looking at things was really powerful because I can go into a room of business people and I can understand quite quickly what energies do they want to get rid of that they might not even know they want to get rid of, and what energies do they want to bring in instead. And that's
so just to clarify, we are not talking scientific terms, we are talking metaphysics.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which can be scientific as well. Yeah.
Not proven, do you think?
Of course.
Empirically? Really?
Over thousands of years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Empirically proven about energies. How, for example?
It's undeniable. Einstein proved it. He proved everything is energy. Tesla said the same thing.
Okay, the question is like, I suppose a lot of skeptics would say that this is like not proven in 3 times repeated experiments, so on, so on, so on, so on. So this is, in these terms, for me, spirituality is really important.
Yes.
And science is really important.
Yes.
And it's really important sometimes to draw the precise line, kind of.
Yes.
Science doesn't understand until this moment this or that.
Yes.
So we are talking about metaphysics and spirituality, and it's really important to talk about that, right? Okay. So, yeah.
Well, skeptics are interesting. Every skeptic is slightly cynical in some ways, and every cynic is a disappointed dreamer. So skeptics are skeptical as a way of protecting themselves against any more disappointments. Now, you could say, well, you need to be skeptical in order to be a scientist. Well, fair enough. You need to be critical. You need to have logical judgment to be a scientist. That's fine. But skepticism as a quality in and of itself is a kind of a block. It's an energy that they should work on minimizing. And they should bring in other energies, the energies of looking for possibility.
By the way, can we say that energy is a little bit in this context as emotions?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So frequencies of thinking.
Okay, yeah, because our concepts or thought comes together with emotions. There are no other way around. So every time there is one, there is other. Okay. Can you just summarize in one I don't know. I'm talking with you as a marketing guy. Really, sorry about that. But summarize, why is it really important for people to know why I am doing this? Why it is really important to know his purpose?
Because if you don't, then you're like a blade of grass that's being blown in the wind. Any direction the wind blows, that's the direction you're going to be pushed in. And everybody instinctively hates that. They often don't understand why. One of the purposes of humanity is to rise above our animal instincts and look for something higher. And without your why, then you're going to be a victim of animal instincts all the time.
Mm-hmm. This is we have long thought about this title of this podcast, and there came this power of humanity. That when we feel this community in ourselves, then we are more positive, we are more driven, more eager to help others. And interesting what you mentioned about cynicism, that in organizations, actually this is the worst thing what can emotionally happen to an organization, when the cynicism rules over some CEOs or managers or something like that. It's like it's a really bad situation for organizations.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm just I don't know, paying my bills. This is kind of my. So there are many levels of whys. So for example, I can understand and I can answer. I'm doing this because. So my why is to pay the rent. And there's this question: do you feel it? That this is like this gives you fulfillment, right? So again, we can say from 1 to 10. Let's say this why, how much fulfillment it gives you. I'm paying my rent. Yes, okay. This is like in terms of fulfillment, not rationally, right? Especially emotionally. And then there comes this question about emotional intelligence, how we kind of recognize our emotions, because now starts this question about, I can rationally say this is totally 100%, 10 out of 10 important, this why to pay rent. And then the question about, does this why make your 10 out of 10 emotional, this fulfillment aspect, right? So we have 2 scales, how to measure things, right? And you are talking, as I understand, about this emotional aspect of that, right? You can rationalize everything you want, but emotions in this case is so important, just to be emotionally feeling that this gives me fulfillment. This is the purpose.
Yes.
Great. This is great part of our conversation. Listen, this is great. Let's put this on loop.
No, what it is when people are doing something, when they're engaged in something that's bigger than their own dopamine rush, then they get more satisfaction from it. It's much more enjoyable for them. Time seems to stand still.
There comes oxytocin.
Yeah, and serotonin and all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Someone once said serotonin comes from giving things to people, dopamine comes from taking things from people. It's a bit simplistic, but I quite like it. And everybody knows subjectively whether they're feeling good or bad. And when we're doing things just because it's for selfish short-term reasons, there's something in us that makes us feel bad and we're not sure why. So the only antidote that we can think of if we're in that state is to go for the next dopamine fix. If we can rise up out of that loop, then it's more challenging, it's more difficult, and it's more satisfying. And that's partly where self-awareness comes in, of understanding your own emotions. Why am I unsatisfied? Is it just because I haven't had a Big Mac for 5 minutes? Or is it because there's something else missing?
There's a question, I suppose, for a lot of guys. What is the dopamine? What dopamine is doing? And just in short, maybe you can add something to that. That dopamine is the hormone that gives this sense of accomplishment, gratification. Gambling industry is built on dopamine. When you use crack cocaine, it gives you a sense of dopamine. Smoking gives dopamine for the specific area in your brain. And in some ways, every time when you do some good job, again, this is dopamine. So dopamine has, again, this scale. It can be in crack cocaine, and it can be like when you have dopamine, when you have done really great project helping kids. So in some ways, it's really important. For example, Alzheimer's, there are connections between lack of dopamine and Alzheimer's, for example. So lot of those diseases. But the question again is how we mix this dopamine with adrenaline and cortisol. What are like this energy, or oxytocin and serotonin, what is like more giving and caring about others, kind of that.
Well, they're different. They come from different areas of human behavior. The dopamine rush, I was told a long time ago by an old colleague and anthropologist that the origin of the dopamine rush, and as you said, things like gambling and stuff, it comes from hitting a target, because we're hunters. In order to eat animal protein every day, we needed to hunt.
You have studied a lot about tribes and all those things. Okay.
And we needed to hunt, which meant that hunting an animal once and eating it was not enough. We needed to do it every day, which meant that we were equipped biochemically to want the rush, want the excitement of hitting an animal and of picking fruits and berries and leaves and things. So we're target fixated. And when we hit a target, when we see a target, we get excited. When we hit a target, we get a little bit more excited. And that's in order that we continued eating animal protein and survived. Now, hunting has its opposite, which is being hunted. And that's where the adrenaline and the cortisol come in. Because the hunter often becomes the hunted. Hunting is not a safe activity, it's dangerous. So that's the duality between them. The serotonin thing's slightly different because that comes from cooperation.
A little bit about dopamine, just to emphasize for everyone. When you're trying to find your passion and purpose, you have to understand you have to have dopamine in your life.
Yes.
You have to have, this is really important, that sometimes people say that you're stigmatizing or cortisol or dopamine or some kind of, it's really important that you have this dopamine. For example, if you this is like the changing of bad habits. If you want to quit drinking, you have to understand what kind of reaction or emotion it gives you, and you have to give something instead of that. Right, that you are changing your life towards different occupation or changing your life, you have to understand what will give you this hitting of target sense. So you have to be aware of it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, and you were talking about serotonin.
Well, and serotonin, I think there's a much stronger connection with serotonin with cooperative behavior, and not specifically to do with hunting. The only reason why humans have managed to survive and to become the most biologically dominant species on the planet is not only because of our intelligence, but because of our cooperation. So we've got the world's most dangerous animals pacing up and down in our zoos for our entertainment. We haven't got any natural armor. We don't have sharp teeth. We don't have sharp claws. We can't run very fast. We can't climb very high. And still we manage to dominate all the other animal species. How? By cooperating. Everybody knows instinctively that if they're alone, they're going to die. So humans evolved to work in small groups together and to enjoy doing it. And when people ask, what's the biological function of this behavior or that behavior? Why did it evolve to help the human individual survive? It's the wrong question. The question is, why did this or that behavior evolve to help the small group survive? Which explains a lot to do with things like altruism. So we get a rush from cooperating. If we didn't get a rush from cooperating, we wouldn't cooperate and we wouldn't have survived as a species. So the cooperative instinct is there to help us to survive. It makes cooperation enjoyable for us.
And by the way, again, returning just this question about living your life with purpose and sense of purpose, is that we have to understand that what you are talking right now, this is like in some ways an emotional realm, right? And we are totally rationalizing our lives because we have kids, they have obligations, blah blah blah, and that is totally important. But the question always will be how you will mix this. You have these rational obligations of your life, objective targets that you have, and then you have these feelings of your heart. And there comes this big question: are you ready just to start to listen what your feelings are giving? So when Jonathan is talking, as I understand about this dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin, it's really good that you are starting to understand how your happiness, let's say, works, because you need dopamine for happiness, you need serotonin, you need oxytocin, and this is like power of humanity. Really, when you understand how your mind works, happiness works, you somehow can start to do something with that, right?
Yes.
You can start to look some kind of methods or, I don't know, information, how to change something bit to bit, or what way you need to do that, kind of that.
Yeah, we all need the rush of these things. And we can get them through gambling or through drugs or through whatever. Or we can understand that each one of us has a unique way of obtaining our satisfaction and of getting these chemicals. And the more productive and positive and useful for other people those things are, the more excited we're going to be, the more satisfying it is for us.
Exactly. I really enjoy this one of studies for air pilots. Not pilots, but
Cabin crew.
Cabin crew, ladies especially, and I suppose guys as well. Then, for example, there was a study about stress management, about stress levels and burnout, and there were this question: why some of the ladies are burning out after 1 month, and some of them after 2 years are just going like everything is fine and like queens. And the answer was that those ladies who kind of enjoyed this job, even when they're sitting some kind of irritating passengers and something like that, and behaving them badly, and they have to pull all patients together, blah blah blah, they enjoyed it, and they had this attitude that this is my place and I like this. So they have this flow and values all in connection with their jobs. But those who didn't have this purposeness, fulfillment, they just burned out. So this is as simple as that, kind of, you know. So when you are doing something that you do with passion, there will be more energy, more willingness to go into details. So you will be better in this profession. You will outperform others who are like doing this, like pure on the will, right? Kind of that. So this is really important. Kind of in our courses, we are basing a lot of things about flow from Michael Csikszentmihalyi, about knowing your values and so on. Getting yourself to know better, and that's more really important. Emotional intelligence. Can we talk about a little bit about emotional intelligence? So emotional intelligence is like, what's your take on it? So my take would be like, it's really scientific. It's really structurized. There are three folds: know yourself, guide your emotions, empathy, and relationships. And there are a lot of what goes into it. But this scientific approach and structure of that gives really good feeling that if you need some kind of really structurized way how to develop yourself, this is like kind of really good tool for educational system, so on, so on, so on.
Oh, yeah.
What's your take on it?
Well, emotional intelligence is necessary. And the easy way to sell it is that it'll make you happier. Unless you're really stupid, unless you are really, really dumb and you have no imagination and you sleepwalk through life looking for the next Big Mac, then the more emotional intelligence you have, the happier you're going to be. Because when you get upset, you understand why. You can understand how to modify your mood, I wouldn't say control, but to
guide.
To guide, yeah. You have healthier relationships, more fulfilling relationships. You make better decisions.
But it's now you're telling this. I'm working with this 10 years, and you're telling this like really in a marketing way, and I'm just listening to that. Listen, this is like the one other bullshit. They're just remarketing that and telling there will be happiness and there will be fulfillment, blah 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 blah. Why is that?
Well, look, you can either develop emotional intelligence, or you can buy this particular brand of shampoo. That will also bring you, happiness and satisfaction.
Okay, by the way, exactly. What is your, what is your experience working with emotional intelligence?
My experience working with emotional intelligence.
One example you told about looking for your why. This is know yourself. This is know thyself.
Yeah.
right? This is like the question about, do you know your values?
Yeah.
Do you know what your feelings are? So know and I will be exact. Know and feel yourself.
Right.
Because there are those two aspects you have to take in account.
Yes.
So you were looking for your why. You were trying to understand and not to go or run away from this feeling. I don't like this.
Yes. Yes.
So this is like the first, really most important aspect of emotional intelligence. Know and feel yourself. So what's maybe some other examples when you were trying to understand yourself and it kind of helped you to live better and go your way?
Well, a lot of it came from my work, specifically from having really stupid bullshit arguments with colleagues and clients.
You're saying so emotionally these two words. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I realized that we were fixated on the wrong targets. It goes back to target fixation. When you're having an argument with someone, not just a sort of a neutral intellectual conversation, when you're having an argument with someone, your target suddenly becomes not what it should be. Your target suddenly becomes to win. And
you're checking in yourself. You're finding in yourself that your target is kind of not the target you would like.
I did it for years without realizing.
Yeah. So this is like a question about understanding yourself.
Yes.
Okay.
And the other person's target was to win. And how do you win? Lots of targets pop up and you knock them down. How do you win? By proving them wrong.
This was not cooperation.
Not cooperation, it was competition.
Yeah.
The opposite of cooperation. And these conversations were not in any way useful for anybody.
So it can be said like we all know relatives who are living and communicating like that all the time.
All the time.
So the problem is that until he cannot name this problem. So this is the emotional intelligence first point.
Yes.
He cannot tame it, right?
Yes.
He can't do anything.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then if you ask yourself in the middle of these conversations, what's my objective here? And you say, all right, my objective is not to win. My objective is to persuade. And then you ask yourself, well, to persuade this person of what? And can I be sure that that's true? Can I be sure that I'm right? Maybe I'm not right, which means I should have a new objective, which is to discover the right answer together with this person, which means I have to stop arguing with them. Because if you argue with someone, they're going to argue back just because you're arguing. That becomes the new game. It's a game for dominance, a battle for dominating the conversation. Nothing to do with what your real desired outcome is.
Status craft.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's status transactions.
Yeah.
And we forget what our objective of the conversation is, and we just end up looking for the next opportunity to win, next opportunity to hit a target of the other person's status, which is so exhausting and such a waste of time. Such a waste of time.
And again, emotional intelligence is all about relationships with myself and towards others, and how this one detail, right, about communication towards winning, how it damages the communication, relationships, and your feeling about the state of mind and well-being.
So many people are happy to win a conversation and lose a relationship. Or win an argument and lose a relationship.
Win a battle and lose the war.
Yeah. Instead of losing the argument and winning the relationship. They can't handle the drop in status. It traumatizes them.
Okay. Usually for our guests we ask one thing or maybe more things what they do in terms of one emotional intelligence method, but it's called ideal self. So when you are understanding that you have some kind of question you would like to work on, or change of habit or attitude or whatsoever, and you are just trying to slowly pick step by step just to work on it. Maybe you can share something that you have been working, I don't know, last week or last month, just an example, just to inspire others, maybe what helped you, what are you working on and what helped you.
I've been getting back into something called Qigong recently, which is very similar to Tai Chi. It's the ancient Chinese art of managing the internal energy of the body. And it used to give me lots of energy, and then I just forgot to do it for years. Don't know why. About once a year I get back into it for a week. And a couple of months ago I got back into it and really started to enjoy it. And I had some discoveries while I was doing it about why I enjoy it and why I always used to forget to do it. And it taught me an awful lot about things like smoking as well and stuff like that, and Big Macs, which is, I always, for so much of my life, I liked things that felt naughty, that felt like I shouldn't do them. And anything that was good for me.
Forbidden fruit?
Yeah, and anything that was good for me just seemed unattractive. So when I was a kid, I loved eating sweets. And I hated vegetables because they were good for me. It was like, it was disgusting. And I thought, well, why is that? Vegetables are not disgusting, and sweets are actually quite disgusting. It's purely perception. I'm in a kind of a trance. What is this trance that tells me anything that's good for me I should reject?
In terms of trance, that it overwhelms you, that you are in it and you don't know that you are in it.
Right, yes,
Okay.
that's the nature of trances. You don't know you're in them.
Yeah.
So where does this perception come from? So I had to sort of dig back through the archaeology of childhood and stuff to understand.
Nice archaeology of my childhood.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, to understand where these impulses came from. And what my parents accidentally, without intending to, they made the forbidden very, very exciting for me. And they made things that were good for me very boring and unexciting for me. That wasn't their fault. They were doing the best they could to make it the other way around. I reacted in a particular way. And this was a pattern that stayed with me for years. And it was why, as soon as I discovered Qigong working for me, I would stop doing it.
So what is Qigong? So, sorry, in short.
Qigong is it's like Tai Chi. It's this. It looks a bit silly. It's what the old Chinese people do in the park every morning. You get 100 old Chinese people doing this in the park. You know,
slow movements with legs and arms, and in correlation with breathing.
And yes, and it's about directing the flow of qi, of life energy through the body. And you know, they live to 100. They live in the most polluted country in the world, and they live to 100. So every time I got into it and I could notice it working, I would suddenly stop. I would have some magnetic compulsion inside me to push it away, to repel it. It was extraordinary, and I sort of didn't notice it happening for a long time.
Okay, emotional intelligence questions about know thyself. What is in you? What kind of bias or stereotype?
Yes, and it starts with awareness.
Okay, yeah.
You've got to ask yourself, what is it that I'm aware of experiencing?
What did you notice? How did you start to work with this rejection, or how to change this attitude towards something, just to reject something that is good for you?
I noticed that the things that were bad for me didn't please me or excite me anymore, and that was very depressing. What now? And then I started to do things that were good for me, and I thought, oh no, that's really boring. But then I found that I actually quite enjoyed it, and that the idea of rejecting it just because it's boring was a stupid little trance state.
So kind of you lived it out.
Yes.
So you synthesized it until the very end.
Yes.
Okay.
I still had to do a fair amount of sort of self-hypnosis to persuade myself that the things that are good for me are actually enjoyable as well. It wasn't just
for example
that I noticed. For example, eating more vegetables.
Okay.
I had to actually do some self-hypnosis to tell myself, I like eating vegetables.
Okay, self-marketing. Okay.
I had to advertise to myself.
Yeah. Okay. Vegetables, what else?
Fruit,
okay. What else? Just in case, anything what comes to mind, what you have been working that because you understand that this is good for you and you were rejecting that. What else? Long walks, nature, what else? I don't know.
I've always enjoyed long walks. They managed to escape my rejection of good things. I don't know how.
Okay.
They went under the radar.
Okay.
Yeah,
What else?
I've always enjoyed that. Just sort of self-discipline.
Okay.
Keeping things the way they should be, keeping things in order.
Okay.
Not letting things fall to pieces.
Anyway, you know, this is like I would say this is really crucial to understand this question about awareness, about how one concept regarding something or someone can just ruin everything. And until you notice it, it's like it can make it destructive in so many aspects in your life, right? And you can just live with that. And the funny part is like sometimes in trainings I ask, for example, do you know some relative what behaves in the way that everyone in your relative's tribe just thinks, oh come on, how can he do that? And he only one who doesn't know that is himself. So this is the paradox about our eyes, that we are looking outwards.
Yeah, of course.
And we don't know these inside processes.
Totally.
And we have to develop this inside look.
Yes.
Can develop to understand. And I understand that, I recall that I was the guy who was like totally energetic and blah, blah, blah. And afterwards, I just see that after some events, people were like smirking at me, kind of that. And I thought I was magnificent. I was great. I was wonderful. Because I didn't notice, I wasn't aware that I was too loud or a little bit not so empathic as it would be nice. So it took me, I don't know, 10 years in society to understand that maybe I have to some kind of change my habits, attitudes, and I didn't know that. And it's really funny that we have to learn just to see us clearly, more clearly.
Yeah. Well, we can see other people's dysfunctions much more clearly than we can see our own, and we often project onto other people. So there's a very useful exercise to go through, which I learned from, bizarrely, I learned it from Kabbalah, from ancient Jewish mysticism. It feels like a very modern thing, but apparently it's ancient, which is every time somebody really, really annoys you, there's something that they're doing or some quality that they have, some characteristic they have that really, really annoys you. The thing to ask yourself is, in what ways do I do that?
So the mirroring, to understand
mirroring.
what kind of mirror effect.
And it's a very difficult question to ask. I mean, it's an easy question to ask verbally. It's a very difficult question to actually spend more than 5 seconds trying to answer, because we have to look at what's wrong with us. We don't really want to do that.
Kind of to be honest. And by the way, one thing why I like this aspect of emotional intelligence, there is this really important aspect of self-evaluation and self-confidence. Not kind of arrogance, but self-confidence that I know what I'm missing, what are my challenges, I'm not afraid of them. So, for example, yes, I sometimes get angry. Okay, sometimes I'm really irritated. Sometimes I'm barely keeping myself together, not to yell at someone. But just to understand, okay, this is my kind of black line, my zebra design, and I will work on it. Step by step, after 1 month or something like that, but I kind of accept myself. Because without accepting myself, I cannot love myself. And when I cannot love myself, then I cannot love anyone. Kind of that.
You've absolutely got to accept yourself to make any change. And you've got to accept the bad things that are happening. I don't mean accept them as in, oh, it's all right, I can handle that.
That's me, that's my personality.
Not accepting in the sense of being okay with it, but accepting in the sense of acknowledging that it's happening. If you want to clean the house, you have to see the dirt. If you can't see the dirt, you can't clean it. And
just to be clear, that this is dirt. Kind of that. This is kind of, I would like to live in a clean house. This is dirt, but if someone comes into your room, it shouldn't be like a situation that when you go into his room, don't tell him there is dirt because he doesn't want to hear that there is the dirt. Yes. So to be open about yourself. Yes. There's this question about honesty.
But then when that guy leaves the house, he'll see dirt everywhere outside.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, mirroring. Yeah. The really important thing is the question about honesty, that sometimes it's really important for us to be empathic and not to tell someone that there is dirt. Because maybe if, from my perspective, this is my principle, that if no one asks, I don't tell. So this person, for this moment in his life, he's not ready to listen to something that maybe this will be too huge for him. And maybe some kind of childhood trauma connected with that or something like that.
Or if you tell it in the wrong way, they'll simply reject it. It'll get worse.
Exactly. You can do harm.
Yes.
You can actually do harm.
It's also about courtesy. And courtesy, the origin of courtesy is very simple. Courtesy is about having concern for the other person's subjective emotional experience of being with you. And that comes from emotional intelligence. That's social intelligence and social awareness. If you don't care about the other person's subjective emotional experience, then you're just running around like a gorilla thumping your chest. For what reason? For what reason? There's no reason. That's people who don't think it through. Donald Trump is a brilliant example, right?
He's brilliant.
Because he's
I lost you at word brilliant. Trump is brilliant.
No, not he's brilliant. He's a brilliant example.
Kidding, sorry.
There's such a paradox with him. Because on the one hand, he cares so deeply about his image and about what people say about him. On the other hand, he just doesn't give a shit at all. What's going on? He cares so much, and yet he doesn't care.
It's, there is, when we have tribe, we are working with our tribe, so I don't care what other tribes are saying. So my perspective of him is like, there is this tribalism going on. So these are my guys, and these are not my guys. Yeah. And if you are talking against me, so you're not in my tribe. So I'm including and excluding in 1 second.
Right.
Kind of that. So he feels like tribal.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And then the weird thing is you say to the other tribe, I really don't care what you think or what you say. And then they say something horrible about you, and you're like, yeah. Well, obviously you do care what they think and what they say, don't you?
Yeah, this is like the story about the funny relative, right? About Donald. It's kind of, you can see on him a lot of stuff, and I just think that good thing about I can say that I'm full of bad shit. I have to work on, and I suppose
run for president.
Thank you. Are you drunk? I wish. Kind of that. No, but listen. Maybe we can conclude this conversation about power of humanity about educational system, because we have talked about educational system a lot, and the funny part is, and it is the really strange part, economics can differ, cultures can differ, but educational system somehow is really similar in the whole globe. And it's like, if that would be great, if educational system globally would be great, I suppose we wouldn't have climate change problem. We wouldn't have problem about third of or food thrown away from supermarkets whatsoever. Aggressions and killings and so on. So emotional intelligence, what part would you say it should be from educational system?
Well, if emotional intelligence is important in life in general, which we're both convinced it is, then it must be important in education. It must be important for it to become a part of education. And it's absent from education, because the education system, it's about consistency, and it's about mechanistic thinking, understanding the mechanics of how the world works. And a lot of it is back to tribalism. A lot of the education system is a prolonged process of tribal initiation. Now, tribal initiation is what happens when a child in a tribe becomes an adult. Every tribe has its own ways of doing it. Sometimes it takes 6 months or a year or 2 or 3 years. Other times it takes a few weeks. But always there's, first of all, you have to remove the individual from their tribal support system, from their social support system, so they're on their own in some way. You have to give them all kinds of challenges.
So remove from parents, for example, in this case.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have to give them all kinds of challenges that develop their skills, develop resilience.
In terms of what its kind of society needs.
Right.
Kind
absolutely.
of
the
society
skills
needs.
the tribe needs these people to have.
In this case, really primitive, because these skills that are taught in school is really not for life.
Absolutely, yes.
And not for work as well, right now.
And exactly, outdated. And then there's this process of appeasing and flattering the elders. You show the elders of the tribe, I'm prepared to make lots of sacrifices to become one of you. I care so much about belonging that I'm prepared to make all these sacrifices, and I'm prepared to go through all the tests that you set for me.
And I will be part of this society when the seniors are leaving.
Yes, then I'll be accepted in the group. And you need to have consistency for that. And so much of it is about the status of the elders and submitting to the status of the elders. This is why at universities they put you through these horrible exam experiences that have got nothing to do with learning or to do with showing what you've learned. It's all about this display of submitting yourself to the authority of the elders, going through a trial and a challenge and some suffering so the elders can say, yes, okay, you're one of us now. That's absolutely primitive. And it's a very dominant feature of the education system. It happens so much. Then there's the hierarchical side of it. We're compared to each other all the time. From the age of about 7 or 8 onwards, the child is compared to the other children on a very mechanistic level, not on a meaningful level, not on a level
one-dimensional.
Very one-dimensional,
yeah.
And it causes all kinds of emotional problems and social problems, because suddenly, my whole worth in life is whether I got 8 out of 10. If you got 9 out of 10, then I'm nothing. And this, oh God, what? Seriously? This is what we're doing to our kids? We've been doing it for thousands of years, and we're still doing it, and we don't think about it. So on the one hand, the parent says, darling, I just want you to be happy. On the other hand, they say, did you get 10 out of 10 in the test? Yeah, these mixed messages, and the kid grows up thinking, well, what am I supposed to care about? Where's my satisfaction supposed to come from? It's a horrific thing.
Babylonia. Remember, could you retell this story about Babylonia, where they found these scrolls? The educational system was there?
Yes. Well, they found teacher training texts. From thousands of years ago, from the Babylonians, from southern Iraq, where they learned that...
It's like 1,000 years BC or something like that?
Longer.
Longer, okay.
And basically you have to humiliate kids if they make a mistake. You have to separate them from their parents, from their source of love.
That was rule. That was rule at that
This is
time, just for the sake of kingdom, that kingdom will function properly. That there won't be any civil wars and some unrest
Yes.
and something like that.
And a lot of it again went back to consistency. You need a consistent structure.
Predictability, so that the masses are predictable,
Yeah.
right? They are not dangerous.
Yes,
Okay.
and a lot of it was mind control as well, because the scribes were essentially the priests. The priests and the scribes, they were all employed by the temple. Occasionally you had freelance scribes, but basically, and a lot of it depended on family. If your father was a scribe, you would be a scribe. If your father worked digging ditches, you were going to work digging ditches. It was almost impossible for you to become a scribe. And the scribes were the guardians of the mythology of the super tribe, of the city state. And so they convinced everybody that the king is a god, all this kind of stuff. Very dysfunctional, but they felt it was the only way to keep society going. And they learned that you have to separate the kid from its parents. You have to atomize the world into separate subjects, and like Humpty Dumpty, the old nursery rhyme of the... You don't know it? Humpty Dumpty sat on a... All right, whatever. It doesn't matter. There's a kid's nursery rhyme about this egg, go figure, who fell off a wall and they couldn't put him back together again.
Okay.
Because he was shattered. And that's what you do to the child's understanding of the world. So they can't build up the world again holistically in their own mind. They're dependent entirely on the categorizations you give them about how the world works. You humiliate them, threaten them, punish them if they make mistakes. So you put them under an awful lot of pressure to perform, which means the imagination takes a back seat, and the anxious, judging, self-critical ego takes over, is in the driving seat. And you have to put them under huge family pressure. In some places, at some times, if you failed at school, then your father would kill you. So this produced very anxious people who were wedded to the system. They were married to the system. They depended on the system. And so they defended the system with their lives. Anybody who tried to threaten the established order was a massive threat and was a bad guy, was a villain and had to be stopped. It was almost like a kind of a Soviet or totalitarian system in the sense that it became self-sustaining. Everybody who bought into the system became part of the system, and even if they sensed somehow that there was something wrong with it, they depended on it. So they had to contribute to keeping it going, just to survive.
Gamification, in some ways.
Yeah, invisible gamification.
Ill kind of ways.
Yeah, very dysfunctional.
Yeah. Okay, so Jonathan, always pleasure to meet you and to talk with you. And guys, we really hope that maybe you can pick some good thoughts from Jonathan's ideas and his examples. And anyway, our biggest wish in this podcast about power of humanity is that you can strive for living your life with fulfillment and purpose and passion and emotional intelligence as a tool kit with a lot of good instruments, methods, how to have better relationships with yourself and others and live with more well-being and not so much stress, kind of that. Okay, man. Thanks a lot. Again, thanks for being here.
Cheers.
Cheers.